We have a great set of artists in line to interview tonight, and we're going to end by speaking to them in a panel with questions for all of them. We apologize that Annette Rinker's video is not able to display during this live feed, but we will post it in the comments section for anybody to watch later on. And just to give you an explanation of who Annette is, Annette Rinker is a huge part of the Hamilton Arts Center since 2006. She's been serving in various roles there over her time. She's taught in private and public schools, and she continues to teach at the Hamilton Arts Center today. And she gets her inspiration from nature and thinks that art is a universal language. So she did prepare a demonstration working with clay for everybody to watch. So I am excited for everybody to watch that in the comment section. We will begin instead with Jennifer Gordon. Jennifer Gordon is the artistic director and choreographer of Allegory Dance Theater. She's an accomplished professional ballerina and dance educator. Hi, Jen. How are you today?
Hi, Lisa. Doing well. How are you?
Good. So I am very interested in dance because I was a dancer for at least 16 years of my life doing ballroom and Argentine tango. I know that you are a professional ballerina, and I am very interested to hear about how you got into dancing, why you view dancing as an art form, because I certainly do, and what you think dance has to offer to people.
Well, like most 6 and 7-year-olds, my parents put me in dance because I was very, very active. They were hoping that it would calm me down. I'd stop running around the house. Little did they know they created a monster because I still danced around my house. Except for now I know what I'm doing. I had gotten started around 6 or 7. And then after my first year of dance, I had done a local company's professional production of Nutcracker. And we did our regular weekend rehearsals. And then November comes and the professional dancers came in. And it wasn't their performance that was the hook. It was watching the work, which was really, really interesting. At 7, 8 years old, I had made the decision this is what I wanted to do because I saw the hard work, the sweat, the failures, and the perseverance that kept going through then to that beautiful product. And I looked at my mom and I said, that's what I'm going to do. And here I am, some 30 odd years later, still doing it. And I'm extremely thankful for that. That is kind of what hook, line, and sinker. But along with ballet, I do contemporary. I do various styles of folk dance, modern, jazz, you name it, it's in there. I have a touch of ballroom in there, which I'm so jealous of the Argentine tango for so long. It's such a beautiful dance. Along with that. And I view dance as an art because, most people think it's extremely athletic, and it is. It requires so much of you physically. But dance is an art because it's saying what words can't. It can take you to so many places. You can tell stories with that. And through my work, that's our main goal is to be able to tell a story, to be able to connect with people.
And do you view it as like a form of like self-expression, a way for people to show like who they are? Maybe they might be shy, but they could express themselves through dance.
Absolutely. Dance requires you to be at your most vulnerable. Mm-hmm. When somebody moves, it will tell you so much about them. For me personally, it is absolutely a release. It's a freedom. It'll be 7 years next month. I had brain surgery and I was out of commission for about 3.5 months. I had to relearn to have conversations, to stand. I couldn't stand for more than 3 seconds. And not being able to physically get up the way I was used to with ballet and express myself and release, I struggled to find other ways of doing it that quite met the what dance had done for me. It's it brings so many things: communication, nonverbal communication, even verbal communication when you're working within the classroom or within the rehearsal studio. It just does so many wonderful, brilliant things. And that's where I think it keeps it on the art side more than the athletics, because it's showing the human element in its most raw form, and that's the physical body.
Yes. And do you find that there's a real key component of body memory? Like in your situation when you had the surgery and you had to come back, did it help that it was like sort of a part of your body already inside of you? Did
Yes,
that help?
absolutely. So I've actually done quite a great deal of research into the way the brain functions with music and with movement. And the nerve connections and brain connections that are developed through music and movement are some of the hardest to be damaged as far as that muscle memory within the brain. And I was having a hard time with my physical and vestibular therapies. And the only thing my therapist had noticed is that they were playing music in their facility and my feet were keeping time. So with that, I was able to keep time with the music with my foot. And then I was able to start metering the way I was speaking, dependent on the music that was in the room. Because if not, I would speak so quickly. I would ask the same question repetitively. It was pretty rough. My husband's a saint for putting up with it. But that enabled me to remember how things felt within my body and to do what was necessary to get back to the feeling of that memory. And I've actually used all of those lessons I had to physically learn myself in a program I wound up later developing called Hope Dances.
Yes, I definitely want to talk to you about that in a little bit. I am curious. It has to be absolutely challenging to some degree to teach dance virtually, but you seem to have mastered that. And I really am curious to see how you do that with your clients.
Well, with the professional company, with Allegory, we weren't able to do very many rehearsals online. That's not an avenue that we really explored, just because we want to offer that feeling. It's so hard to get the feeling of live performance through a screen. So we decided to halt that while COVID was going on, especially for everybody's health. But through teaching online, it wasn't very different for me in the fact of my teaching style. Contrary to traditional ballet classes where this is, how it works and this is how history has taught me. I look at each individual and try to teach them based on their learning style within that classroom. So that transferred really well. I use a lot of imagery, a lot of, knowing how to feel that within your body so that the students and dancers can do the same within their own space. It also afforded us as dance teachers a really wonderful opportunity to get back to basics. So although dancers within their own homes did not have the appropriate floor surfaces or the significant amount of space to dance large, when you break it down and you bring it more internalized, you're able to focus on the correct muscles. So if we take it from the artistic side of things and we put it into the athletic or even the scientific side of things, teaching them how the physics work within their body and feeling that specific musculature, we were able to fine tune a lot of the small details within their technique. So when all the dancers were able to come back into the studio, those basics were so strong, it afforded them the ability to explore more artistically.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing, and that's great that it worked out so well that way. I am really curious to hear about the Hope Dances program that you have. The reason I got into dancing is from my father. He's been a dancer his whole life, and I credit his amazing health to the fact that he's been dancing for so many years. So I do believe that dance has an important part in people's health physically and mentally. So I am really curious to hear what you have to say about the Hope Dances program.
Oh my, Hope Dances it's my baby. It's my third child. It's so near and dear to my heart. A friend of mine, a contact over at the Vineland Veterans Home when the program was first started, had invited me in. They needed something within their memory care unit. And the program was originally called New Glory. And it was created for their Old Glory unit, which is their memory care unit. And he invited me to come in and see the unit and see what was going on down there. And I was, just a couple of years out of my surgery. And at first, I'll admit, I was really intimidated. I didn't have enough knowledge about people living with dementia or what to expect. We all have this general idea in our head. And it really gave me reservations, but I had gone in and seen what was going on. I said, I think I can actually do some good here. So I had developed, I had already done enough research for myself, and I'm definitely a physical learner. I'm the do it. I have to learn by doing. I used a lot of those within that, but I carefully curated the music that I was using because I knew that was working for me as well. So my first day I come in and I start with the curated music and the movement patterns that I knew, triggered different connections within the brain or balance issues. Mm-hmm. And it was fantastic. My mom actually had come in with me as my helper. And my mom is in her 60s. And she's going and she's having a good old time. She goes, I really like this. We had one gentleman who he liked to walk around the unit, and that's just what he did. He didn't converse much, but he liked to walk around. And our last song, we closed with Johnny Cash's You Are My Sunshine. And he stopped, he turned, he held my hands, and he sang with me. And so it's not ballet the whole time. We're doing all kinds of different things. And it's not just balletic movement. There's so many different patterns. And he stopped and he sang. And then when it was done, he left. And his medical aide that was there says, I didn't know he could sing.
Wow.
It was really, really neat. And over the course of time, we were able to identify specific songs that got a repeated result, no matter, because most of these residents were they're in end stage dementia. So oftentimes they would be asleep. They could be in an agitated state. It can run a full spectrum of different things. And one particular song, no matter what state the residents of the unit were in, they would, boom, that was it. That was their, okay, I'm here. Let's dance. Let's do this. I'm in a good mood. It was nothing short of magical. You could not leave there in a bad mood. Like, it's no matter what was happening before you came in, once you were there, it's just fantastic. One of our dancers who assisted us is actually going back to school for her master's in dance therapy because she wants to be able to continue that program and be able to create it as a full-blown therapy program.
Wow, I truly believe that. I totally can see that happening just based off of my experience and knowledge with dance. That sounds like an absolutely incredible program. It actually makes me emotional to hear about it and see how it is affecting senior citizens with dementia. That's absolutely super special, and I'm glad that you got into that with them. So thank you so much for speaking with me. I have to go to our next guest, but I really enjoyed this conversation.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
You're welcome. So our next guest is Kristen Middleton. She publishes Aonic Comics. She's also recently released a book, and she does fantastical watercolors and charcoal drawings, and I'm very interested to speak to her about all of this.
Hey, Lisa, it's good to be here with everybody.
Hi, Kristen. Welcome. So I'm really interested to know how long you've been publishing Aonic Comics, and if you could describe to us what the comic is about. I have read a few comics in my life, not as many as my husband, but I just love to learn more about it.
Aonic Comics is actually a collaborative effort. It's me, local artists, and then also artists from all over the world too. I think the farthest one away is in Belgium.
Wow.
But we've been doing it for about a year now. Me and then also my partner, Chris, who's working on it with me. The goal of the project was we wanted to really expand the art form of comics and what it's capable of, because I think there's something so powerful in the way that image and text can tell a story, especially one that you're reading and you're still putting your own effort into making it in your head. So we wanted to take artists that we both loved and really get people together on this project, meet each other, and really create something that nobody's really seen before. It's been really great so far. We're on our 4th issue, which is crazy. I'm putting that together now. But yeah, the project, it's been incredible to see it take off, and readers from all over the world too, and the local area, to see that is it's really something.
That's great. So do you have like one set storyline for the comic, or does it change from comic to comic, or is it the same characters?
Actually, it's all short stories, and then we
Okay.
also have writings and also illustrations involved as well. Another really interesting thing, we just had our first play too. So we had somebody put a written play that they made, which was really cool. But yeah, there are some continuous stories by different artists that are a part of the magazine or similar themes. However, each issue has new people, returning people, and different stories. It's sort of like the 80s comic collection heavy metal magazine, where it's not like your average everyday Marvel superhero type of stories. There's a lot of new sort of artistic expressions and stories going into it. So we're really open with things that we'll consider. If we like what the people do, we'll put it in the magazine.
That's great. And like, what would you say to somebody who's not yet into comics? Describe to them why they should take a look at comics and get into this world.
I think that it's something where, as a reader, there's something really special about having, especially in really experimental comics, being able to see somebody's art and having to visualize the movement in your head, because comics only take you so far. When you're watching a film or a movie or something like that, you're being given everything. There's the sound and there's time involved. And in a book, it's all in your head. But there's also things that you can't really describe in words that you can with pictures and with images. So when you really break down the form and play with the way that time moves from panel to panel, or even getting rid of panels entirely and really playing with the way that images move and sort of narrate a story, there's really something, I think, truly unique that comes out of it that you can't do in any other media. And I think even though it's cool that comics are so popular now, I think people really have a stiff idea of what that genre can give to people. So this is an effort to really expand the art form and to get the voices of new up-and-coming creators out there to people.
I think that's an absolutely great description for someone who doesn't know like why comics are so special. Do you do the illustrations and the storyline?
I have some illustrations of mine in there and also some comics, but it's from people all over too. So I'm the one, I have input on what we put in the magazine.
Okay.
So I talk to all of our artists, a lot of people that I know and really likes, which is really cool, because then it's like, oh man, I'm such a fan of this person. I have a reason to talk to them, which is really exciting. So it's different storylines, different characters in each story. But I do have my own stories in there too. I had a continuous story for the first 2 issues, and then also comics based on dreams and whatnot too, and some spot illustrations here and there.
Awesome. So the last thing I want to ask you is about your recently released book. It's called Sparks from a Dark Woods, a series of visions. Can you describe that to us?
So that was a work entirely of my illustrations and stories. And there's also a poem too by Chris, I should mention that. But with that one, I've had so many stories and these sort of creatures that would come up here and there in my artwork. But I really wanted something that put them all together so I could really give it to people and see their response to it. It came out of a really tumultuous year too, so there's a lot of that in there, and it's sort of like a home for everything. It's been really exciting to see people's response to it, and it's really been good too, because I think it's sort of solidified what direction I want to take my work. One reaction I had to it recently was a girl was looking through it And she got to the part of there's a section called "The Fish That Invented Sushi," and there's a small writing section to it too. And she lit up and she was like, "Oh, I don't know why, but I know exactly what this is trying to get at." And I realized, like, yes, that is exactly the kind of response that I want, like, to my work as a whole, where it's like, it's kind of vague and ephemeral and people don't really understand why they connect with it, but it's like speaking to something. It's like when you have a really good dream, it's like you don't know exactly what happened, but some part of you says, like, wait, that made sense, that was important there. And I feel there is a universal language to that too. So I'm hoping to sort of continue some of the stories set up in that one, and to publish more things like that kind of strike the same chords and have a bunch of fun and like whimsical kind of characters too.
That's great. So where can people find this book?
You can find that on my website, kristenmidart.com. You can also find me under that name on Instagram, and that should all be in the bio there. On our Big Cartel store for Aonic Comics, you can buy that there too. There's also a page on Instagram, Aonic Comics, which has the link to where you can find all of our artists, all of our past issues, and also get updates on issues coming out too. Issue 4 should hopefully be out by the end of this month.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing your art with us and everything that you do.
Thank you. This is really cool.
You're welcome. So our next artist is going to be Charlene Campanella. She co-founded Apiary Creative here in Hamilton, and she brings years of experience to this business. Charlene, welcome.
How are you?
Good. So I'm super curious. I know you work on advertising campaigns, and just knowing about people who own their own businesses, there's a lot of work that goes on behind their talent. So I'm picturing marketing, advertising, branding. There's a lot of behind the scenes art that goes into what emerges as the final product. So can you describe a little bit of like the behind the scenes, and does all of what you discuss and work on end up in that final product? And how many people are involved in this?
So it really depends on the client's budget at times, the size of the project, but typically, you know, you have an account manager, a copywriter, as well as a designer that helps kind of bring that project to life. In terms of what happens behind the scenes, there's a lot of research, there's a lot of discovery and inspiration that we look for in Pinterest, as well as other areas, traveling around, looking at art, and finding inspiration to come up with creative campaigns. From there, you know, we work with our designers to help come up with concepts that are then presented to our clients. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we go through rounds and rounds of revisions with them until it actually is finalized and is published or comes to life. So yeah, I mean, it's not always the final product that we envision, but it's pretty close. I mean, that is our job, to kind of work with the client to make sure that their vision is there, but also that our creative influence is shown through the work.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm thinking to bring in the two people into this conversation that work with you. So we're going to have Sarah Woolerman join. She is president and co-founder of Apiary Creative. And we're also going to bring in Faith Andrews Brandstetter. She's an associate creative director at EFK, but she also works at Apiary Creative.
Yeah, so Sarah and I are co-founders. We actually, all three of us work together at previous agencies, and we are frequently relying on Faith to help us with our design projects, our web development and design projects for that as well. So great to have these two on board.
So Faith or Sarah, do you have anything to add to what Charlene was explaining to what goes on behind the scenes in creating what is very likely an amazing end product for your clients?
You want to start, Faith?
You can go ahead. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, so I think part of it is, I mean, it reminds me of some of the other answers we heard from the other panelists about just telling a story. You know, whether it's our larger client or our small businesses who, you know, we especially love to work with. You know, a lot of the businesses that we're working with, they're so emotionally attached to the work that they're doing. You know, this is their passion. They've, you know, put themselves, their heart, their soul, their you know, savings account into this business. And so it's helping tell their story. And like Shar was saying, also doing it in a way where we're bringing in our strategy and expertise to do it. So there's like a nice collaboration. You know, our goal is always so the person can hear their voice through the project, or you know, feel like they are really being represented. And our job and the thing that we're proud about is, you know, doing it in a way that really helps elevate it, just because of the things we know that are popular in the industry and what people might gravitate towards, and just things that we've been inspired by.
So I know, like, I'd be curious to hear, like, what inspires each one of you. I believe, Faith, you have a photography background, correct?
Yes, I went to school for photography. I did photography from freshman year of high school all the way up till currently. But yeah, I guess with photography, what really is inspiring to me is kind of the little life moments. My favorite photography is always street photography, just the spur of the moment stuff, the decisive moment. So I think that I try to bring that into a lot of the work that we do, have some type of recognition of like little everyday things, and it helps people connect to the work. So yeah, it's just a lot of really looking at details. I think that's a huge part of what we do at Apiary, and just in this industry in general, is really paying attention to details, because those little things count and really make things feel more genuine if you're really kind of getting really down and deep into everything.
Yes. So, in terms of small businesses, you said it really well. Like, they put their hearts and souls into their business. I'm sure you guys do as well, because you have your own small business. So how do you sit down with them and they tell you, like, these are the things that they want in it, and then you help them create that vision? And do you combine different art forms? Like, do you combine graphic design with a photography session that you did with their logo or their message? Like, does that, all of that come together and work into the final product?
Yeah, depending on what the client is coming to us for, it's really a customized process. Sarah and I always sit down first and speak to the client. We usually have a 30 to 45-minute consultation session with them to understand what their needs are. Sometimes they come to us with a very specific request. A lot of times, after having some conversations, we find out that maybe there's a bigger need to establish their brand a little bit better, to give them a stronger voice, maybe strengthen their logo, or maybe just help them identify who they actually are. And who they should be speaking to. And then, so once we kind of get to a point where they're comfortable with the strategy and the plan that we develop, that's when we'll pull in our designers, our web developers, our copywriters, to start to bring the project together. So that is typically how our process goes. Sarah, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yeah, no, I mean, you nailed it. You know, I mean, it's really about just making sure that, you know, it's so hard, because when people are like, oh, what are the services you offer? I mean, you know, we do, you know, we do website design, we do, you know, strategy work, we do logos and things, but it, you know, that always doesn't feel like it's really doing the process justice. Because like Shar said, I mean, we sit down and we really want to understand the businesses we're working with. And, you know, we're also very upfront if we don't know if we're going to be the best match. I mean, there's been some really wonderful businesses that we've connected with, but the vision that we think is going to be the most successful for them, we just can't achieve it, you know? So we really try to work with companies that we feel like we can do, you know, we can do right by them. And, you know, I'll let Faith talk a little bit about the, like the logo process in art, because I think that's a really interesting piece. We've had the privilege of working with a few businesses in the last couple of years to really help with branding or rebranding efforts. And I have to say, I'm really excited to see that when we get to do like that full process with a brand, because like Shar and I spend so much time initially getting to know them, understanding them, learning their story, and figuring out how we will tell that story. But then like, we get to bring in Faith, like, and just seeing what she does to make these thoughtful choices for a logo that like you wouldn't even think about because they look so simple. And that's really a good logo just is working on so many levels that you don't even know.
Yes, because it has to have an impact on the consumer or the client of that business. So it has to like stand out. It has to maybe have an emotional impact or something to grab their attention and draw them in, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think an important part about a logo, and I don't think I understood this until I got into graphic design and started working on brands, but a logo is a lot more complex than it seems when you just see one. Usually, you can usually tell what the like vibe of a company is or what a company does just by a simple mark. And so it's an interesting process to get to that place where you feel like it fits someone perfectly or fits a brand perfectly. But it's also really gratifying when it is something so simple, but you know that behind it is a lot of thought and a lot of personality, and is very specific to that company.
How long does it take about to bring a vision to life into a final product? Are we talking like a week, months, a year?
Months. I mean, it's definitely months. You know, once again, we go through the process of having our consultation sessions with them, and then you know, defining what their brand is, right, in words. Then that's when I'll typically work with Faith, and we'll put together some mood boards, and we'll start to draw inspirations for colors, for shapes, for words, for typography, you know, different font options. And we kind of start with this, again, this kind of mood board of just images, and then slowly we pare it down and then start the design process. Typically, we go through about 3 to 4 rounds of design revisions until we get to the final mark. And then from there, you're doing even additional exploratories to look at different color options. How does that mark live, you know, small, big, on black, white, on color? How does it kind of change it from a vertical layout to a horizontal layout? So you have to think about the usage of that logo. Where is it going to live? And making sure that you're thinking about all of that before it actually gets delivered to the client. And then that it's like one small piece of it, because from there, then we're building out collateral, we're building out website design, and then that's when the color exploratory and patterns can start to really highlight what that logo is.
It's just absolutely incredible listening to you. Like, I know, like, I can just imagine how much work and detail and thought that all is. I mean, just so much is involved in creating a logo. It's absolutely amazing. How would each of you say you've grown over your years as an artist, as you've like started maybe in one section, like a photographer or a journalist, and branched out and grown into graphic design, marketing, advertising, etc.?
I'll be very honest. I think before I got into advertising, I was a bit of a snob art-wise. But then once I really started to think about it and make things and work with graphic designers and become a graphic designer, and I just started to realize that everywhere you go, there's these pieces of art that people have made. Not always great, but they're there, and that's how we kind of see the world. I was at a bar one time talking to somebody about what I do, and he didn't really understand what graphic design was, and I literally just pointed to any sign in the bar and was like, everybody did that. So I think like that's kind of, I think I have just like a bigger appreciation for almost everything I see now, because now I can like really look at it and think about how it came to life, which I definitely didn't do before.
That's wow. I mean, I was looking at a quote today. I don't remember it, so I couldn't requote it, but it was just going that if you really looked around in life, you would see that art is in almost everything, even down to like how you arrange your food on your plate at like Thanksgiving. I mean, there's a lot of art everywhere. So if you look around, you'll see that everywhere. So Sarah, how would you say that your art has developed over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I think, I think kind of similar to Faith, this was like marketing was not in like what I was foreseeing for myself at all. I mean, I graduated with an English degree, a creative writing minor. My thesis was a comic book. I was determined to become a starving artist until I realized like sleeping on a mattress, like, in a 1-bedroom apartment in Houston that like we made into 2 because we put up a blanket, like wasn't really what I wanted to do. But, I fell into marketing after like medical publishing, like journalism, like doing that kind of work. And I think kind of similar to Faith, it does allow me to see it allows me to appreciate the ways that I appreciated art or the way I thought I wanted to do something creative in a different way. I mean, because advertisements, I mean, it kind of reminds me of something that Kristen said, like that, the relationship between pictures and words. I mean, I know sometimes it's like, okay, you're selling soda, but, at the same time, like being able to find a way to create emotional connection to, to this person in their home and like to whatever this product is. I think like the evolution of that for me was, at first it was really exciting to work for name brands, and I'm really happy that I had that experience, but I'm also really thankful for the experience that Apiary gives us to, to make that artistic connection for a smaller brand or a smaller company, because I think now we get to tell stories in a way that just really it allows us to feel like we're seeing a little bit more of that direct impact. That helps inspire, me for my personal projects. I have a lot of things that I do on the side for myself, and working with people who are motivated and dedicated and showing up for themselves to do something that was really scary. That was a dream that they decided, screw it, I'm going to try to make it work. That makes me want to do my job better, for them and for my own art.
Wow, thank you so much for sharing all of that. That's really special. And Charlene, how would you say that you've grown over the years with your art?
I think that I've become more patient. I definitely appreciate the creative process a lot more than I did in the beginning, just because I've involved myself in that process now, working directly with Faith and some other fantastic creative directors in the past, working with someone like Sarah, who's extremely creative, and just seeing how she develops her strategies and how she develops copy. Sometimes I'm just in awe of her creative inspiration and the way that she works. So, but understanding that everything takes time, and not everything can happen at the snap of a finger. I think that is probably one of the things that I've learned and what I've taken away from this process.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. I'm very impressed with all of you. You all seem to work extremely well together. You all seem to bring in talents and different backgrounds and get inspiration from each other. And in my opinion, you seem to be an amazing and great thing for a small business to take advantage of. So any small businesses out there in Hamilton, check out Apiary Creative.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So we wanted to end with a panel discussion that includes all of the artists on this interview. I'm interested to know if you each have a female artist in particular, or maybe more than one, that inspired you to become an artist.
I don't know. I have a lot of female artists that I really like, and I don't necessarily know. I've always been artistic in many different ways, even growing up before I got into photography. So I can't say that they necessarily inspired me to get into art. But I think one of my favorite female photographers, who is a street photographer. Her name's Vivian Meyer. She wasn't discovered until she passed, which is always interesting to me, just because she had like hundreds of rolls of film that she never developed, and she just liked taking pictures and then never saw what she did. And so they were discovered after her death, and then all of a sudden she's become famous, and there's documentaries and books and all these things, and she was so talented. But it's interesting to me to think that she just enjoyed the process, and that's all it was about, was the process. And that's kind of inspiring, because I think a lot of the times we're focused on what is this going to be? What am I going to do with this? That kind of thing. But really, it's like the act of doing it is the best part a lot of the time.
Yeah, like truly enjoying your job, because your job is that you're going to be like living and breathing the whole process. So it's great that if you enjoy it from the start to the finish, it's a great thing.
Yeah.
Does anybody else have a female artist that they drew inspiration from?
Yeah, actually, I do have a couple of artists. The two that I can recall that really had inspired me from the get-go. There was a dancer that had come to as a guest artist from Dance Theater of Harlem. Her stage name was Pepper. She just had so much passion. Another one who is still here in the South Jersey area would be Jill Graves. And both of these phenomenal women, they weren't what would have been considered the top of the company. They're both extremely talented dancers, but it was the fire that they brought with them. It was the passion that they laid out there on the stage that was just, you just couldn't look away. And believe it or not, the other two women are my children. I know it sounds like, oh, whatever. My 12-year-old and my 6-year-old. Because when with each one of them, they're so very different, but they keep the magic in every single day. And it's being able to see them explore the world that keeps the stories that I choreograph and put on stage with a more wide-eyed and inquisitive view. I had created a piece for my oldest child that was all about being a kid in the summertime. So I just threw a bunch of stuff out on the floor and saw what she played with. And then boom, I had this piece. It's one of my favorite to this day. So from the older generations to the newer generations, it's just each one of them is so inspiring in their own way.
Wow. And do your children happen to also learn dance with you?
So they have each taken classes for their physical health. My 12-year-old is a phenomenal artist. The sketch work that they do blows me away. My 6-year-old, I have no doubts in my mind that she will be on the stage one of these days, because she just has it. Like personality, humor. I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't become a comedian, but definitely meant for the stage, if that's their path.
Amazing. You're passing down good genes for the arts. Does anyone else have any inspirations, or before we move to the next question?
A lot of musicians, actually, too. Kate Bush, I really like. I would say they're a big inspiration. And then also, there are some surrealist painters too. Leonora Carrington and also Dorothea Tanning. They do work that I feel like aims at the same direction of the stuff that I like to do. And going back and looking over, that's a big inspiration, especially since when you think of the surrealists, a lot of the men in that movement come up first, but they did work that was just as quality and just as interesting. And I think they need more attention.
Nice.
I guess I think for me, there's like one that's like, in my life, personal, and another one that's just like hearing other people's responses, making me think about like who inspired me. I think more just to kind of be like, like out there versus like my actual industry. But like for industry and like art, my aunt, Lizanne Woolerman, is a photographer in the area. She's run her own, she had her own studio in town for 25 years. And, she kept a dark room in my grandparents' house. And I remember, going to her studio, and she'd let me take pictures and teach me how to develop my, my photos. And you know, that like she just always encouraged us to be artistic. And, you know, we're just really fortunate that that was something that was supported in my family. And then I guess just like, you know, thinking about like outside influences, I always really liked comedy growing up. And, you know, I think just seeing like female comedians who just were willing to kind of be out there and say what they wanted to and not be the shrinking violet, you know, who was so dainty in the corner. I think I just really appreciated that, you know, so like the Joan Rivers and, you know, Rhea Perlman and, you know, just a lot of people who made it okay to be yourself.
Yeah, that's super important to have these people to pull inspiration from and growth from, and it's really a great thing. Charlene, did you have anybody?
I don't have anyone specific in mind other than the my current colleagues and previous colleagues that I've had that work in the art industry. Just, you know, I've been in advertising, worked at agencies for over 20 years, and being able to see the transition of an art department go from pretty much male dominated to having more females, and seeing how the art changes when a woman comes into a creative department is so inspiring and so refreshing. So for me, it's really just being able to work alongside with them and help develop campaigns with them.
Yeah, that actually ties into some of the other questions I have. I was interested to know, what are the challenges of being a woman in the arts?
How much time you got now?
I know that probably Sarah and Faith can attest to this. Again, working in an agency that is mostly male dominated. I mean, still to this day, there are most of the ad agencies out there are owned by men. And most of the people that work in agencies are men. You know, when you're in a room with them and it's a brainstorming session, it can be pretty intimidating. Sometimes you have to be the loudest voice in the room. Sometimes you have to make your point. You know, Faith and I have kind of been in similar positions where it's been a struggle to get our ideas heard, to be respected. So that's probably been the biggest, one of the biggest challenges that I've had to experience.
I empathize with that. I really do. I believe that women have so much to offer in the field of art, just from my own experiences in life. Has anybody else have a comment on that?
Absolutely. Within the dance world, it's pretty flooded with women. The phrase has actually gone around that women come a dime a dozen, which is really, really sad. However, it's mainly male dominated. Most of the dance companies, not just ballet, this is you know, across the board, are run by men. Fortunately, we are starting to see a huge turnaround with this. We've got Julie Kent, who's in charge of Washington Ballet. We've got Tamara from English National Ballet is coming over to San Francisco Ballet. We're starting to see more women at the helm of these great companies all across the world, which is fantastic. Ariel Dupont in Paris. Another issue that we find as women within our field is that there traditionally have been so many expectations placed on us as far as our bodies go. If we wish to become mothers, it's been typically pretty hard. You have like to find that balance or find a location that supports that you have children, or that you will not be at your peak body for a good amount of time. And, you know, fortunately, this dialogue is happening more often. It's becoming more widely accepted. So luckily, the conversation is changing, but it's still a challenge. And luckily, there's several people like myself that are more body positive, more welcoming, more engaging, and more understanding. And we're passing that on to our students as well as within our own companies. So luckily, we're starting to change the narrative, but it's still a big deal across the world.
Yes, I can imagine. When I danced Argentine tango, it was rare, but it happened occasionally where a pregnant mom would come in and she would dance. She would still go to what they would call a milonga, which is just a gathering for people that dance Argentine tango, and she would dance as pregnant can be. And there was even a mom who came and brought her baby in like one of those kangaroo packs and danced with him on her body. And I was just like really impressed by that, because you don't see that often. But I mean, a mom shouldn't have to stop doing her job or what she loves just because she has a baby. If they can bring it to the dance, or they can dance while pregnant, all the better, if they're willing and happy to do that. Oh,
absolutely. It can only enrich things. And there's many of rehearsal. I actually have photos of myself with my children. My youngest would not allow any of my dance partners to actually touch me. So I would actually have to walk through a rehearsal with her on my hip many times to get through things, and then like sneak away, like, okay, I need somebody to babysit today because I have to run through this with my partner. I need to make sure the lift works. So it's really interesting, but we make it work, and it only improves the art, improves the quality and the nuance that can go into it.
Yes, absolutely. Does anybody else have anything regarding that question of any challenges or successes of being a woman in the arts?
I think something that goes off of what Jennifer was just saying, like in its own way with marketing, is like becoming a mother, or having anything that indicates that you're not putting your career first can be a career killer. Yeah. I know I've heard so many anecdotal stories from women who've gotten pregnant and like had responses from their bosses like, well, I guess that's it for you, or like, you're halfway out basically. And I know that for the most part, I've been fortunate, not so much as taking care of a child, but having to take care of a parent. I've worked for some organizations that have been very understanding and wonderful. And I've worked for some that, did not think that was a reasonable enough excuse to not be on call. I've been in situations where I've taken vacations and, been chastised for not responding to emails or texts in a timely manner, and just finding that work-life balance and being able to still kind of be present, which again is another reason why I'm thankful that there is this turn in our industry with more women kind of, taking the helm. And I think also just, for all the horrible things that have happened in the past couple of years, I think that we are regaining our sense of kind of control over our lives, which makes me really thankful for the fact that we've been able to start Apiary, because, we are completely dedicated to the work we do in our clients. But, if Shar has to go pick up her kid at 2, she picks up her kid and we can make our meeting 2:30. And if I have to go and, spend time with my mom, I can do that and the work still gets done. I think that allows us to take more pride and be more excited about what we get to do for our clients, because we can actually be present in our own lives.
Yes, and I think it might be taken for granted that a lot of working moms, they are willing to work after hours. I know I work many after hours to get my work done. So I know that a lot of women out there in the arts who are very passionate about what they're doing, they're willing to do what it takes with or without children. So that's definitely something that any boss should keep in mind.
Yes, sometimes our best creative work doesn't always happen between 9 and 5, or sometimes life does get in the way. I mean, I personally enjoy working late at night when my kids are upstairs and my husband's snoring on the couch. Like I enjoy doing that. It's my peaceful time, because once 2 o'clock comes around, it's chaos in this house. So yes, my mind kind of shuts down, and I'm getting things ready for dinner, but. Looking back, sometimes I wonder how I did it all. How did I work at an agency from 9 to 6 and come home and take care of 2 small children, feed them and get the house in order, and then also try to get some work done. That is, to Sarah's point, when we started Apiary Creative, that was a rule. We ourselves, our personal lives come first. So that's what we try to do, and I'm hoping that's what we're sharing with our freelancers too, especially Faith as they come on board. But we want to make sure that we're taking care of our employees and ourselves.
Yeah, it's super important. When my husband and I produced the children's show Blueberry Kids, we made our children a part of the show. That worked out really well, and they love doing it. But that for me is like a special memory that we're gonna have like in stone forever. So when they're older and they're like, "What are you talking about? What's Blueberry Kids?" I'll be like, "Oh, well, why don't you watch the 12 episodes that you took part in?" But there's some fun times that there's fun ways to bring your children into art too. So that was one of ours that worked well during the pandemic. So I found an interesting fact that may be based on what we just talked about, that more women get degrees in fine arts than men, but they only make up 46% of working artists across all art disciplines. Why do you think that is? Why do you think that they've trained to become that, and then suddenly the percentage goes down and they don't end up staying in it?
I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I mean, I think a lot of it is cultural. What is the woman's responsibility? And does she need to give up what herself as a person rather than herself as a mom
Yes.
wants to do, So I definitely think that's one thing. And then just speaking from my industry, but I know that this spans a lot of other industries, most other industries, is that even though we're moving away from being male dominated, that takes a really long time, because it's not just the men that own the agencies or own the companies, it's then also the men that grew up in those agencies and those companies, and just like slowly getting out of these like ideals that have always existed for whatever reason. Luckily, I think it is starting to change, and I think one of the very few good things that has happened, like I think Shar said it about the pandemic, is the realization of like the work-life balance and people taking those chances and going out on their own or starting something new. So I'm hoping that this like evens out those numbers a little bit, or at least people start to realize, or bosses and owners start to realize how important all of that is, and that can really help all of the moms, which is funny because we never talk about how things need to help the dads, because it's the same, but for whatever reason. But yeah, so I just think it's a lot of different things that are decades and decades in the making, and it's just going to take a long time to even out,
Yes. Does anyone else have anything they want to add to that?
I think, unfortunately, there's a habit of sort of looking at women in the arts less as individuals and more as a group. Like the idea of women in the arts, instead of like, what is this person, like, what do they feel about this? What's their goal? Where are they going? Maybe because there is more of that male-centric lead to a lot of companies. I think a lot of the individuality of women gets overlooked for them as a group, which is unfortunate, which I think it's definitely changing. But I think that definitely also ties into the work-life balance when you become a mother.
Yes. So I'd like to know what you believe women bring to the arts, whether it's compared to men or different from men. What do women contribute that makes them an absolutely special and essential part of the art world?
Oh, that's a good one. I guess this would be traditional thinking or whatever, but typically women are nurturers, women are givers, and I think that we offer, and I truly believe that we offer more of a human side of things. We are extremely goal oriented. We are, we're driven, we're ambitious, but at the same time, we are not that in such a way that we're going to step on other people, or we want to also see the person next to us succeed as much as we do. So I think that we look to the group effort. Yes, we are looking to propel ourselves forward, but not at the expense of the team, not at the expense of everybody else. We're all in this together.
That is so well stated. I completely agree with that. Does anyone have anything they'd like to add to that?
I think like similarly, but I guess a little bit different. I think it's just a different perspective. And I think this is also something that goes into making sure you're in a diverse group of people, not just male and female, but all, races and religion, all the things, just trying to get, because everyone has a different life experience. So being able to see those different viewpoints and how different experiences affect the way you see things or the stories that you have to tell, it's so important, because otherwise we just kind of you end up getting tunnel vision and you see the same thing over and over and over again. So I think it's important, of course, to have women involved and just like everybody involved, just because otherwise we're just like repeating over and over again the same story.
Yes, I think that it's so important to get women involved and their opinions out there. I know that when my husband and I made that show, first of all, we break the mold. He's a preschool teacher and he's a guy. But when we produced Blueberry Kids, I came to him, I said, we have to keep these kids learning. What should we do? And together, I said, like, let's come up with something visual, etc. And we work together as a team. And I truly believe that that is feasible and possible based on my own life experiences, for men to be able to work in conjunction with women and give them the freedom to contribute what will be amazing ideas. We all have something to bring to the table, and it's super important to be able to share that and then bring it to life. So I'd like to know, what advice would you have to offer to a young girl or a woman that wants to get into the arts right now? What advice would you give them to keep them motivated and go after their passion and stay in the business?
It's a good question.
Yes, it is.
Find what you have to say and stick with it. I think really knowing yourself and where you're going is very important. And once you find that niche, I think you need to take it and run with it.
That's great advice.
I definitely have to echo off of that one, Kristen. It's definitely know yourself, know what you want, and don't compare yourself to anybody else. What you have to offer is unique to you. It might look similar to somebody else's, but it's you. You bring to the table your own experience, your own opinion, your own personality, your own dynamics. So what you have is valuable and it's worthy and it's fantastic. So don't compare, just have complete faith that as long as you're putting in the work, you're going to get there. You just have to keep going.
Yes, I would add to any young lady that definitely for anybody, life can be tough and you have to persevere. You have to have patience. You have to keep remembering that passion that's driving you forward and go after what you want. And it may not be overnight that you get it. It may not be in a month. It could take a year, it could take 2 years, it could take 5. But if you keep going after it and you bring forth that passion within, you can achieve that, and you can do it as a female in this day and age.
Yeah. And this is one thing I wanted to add, like, because I know, we're talking about too, like with that balance of like, like men and women and, but I also think too, like, it can be hard to have competition with women, and there's like that part of it, especially a lot of times in creative fields where it's incredibly competitive. So I'd say, that can be really intimidating. I know that that's been something that, has intimidated me in certain positions that I've been in, but To quote Mr. Rogers, look for the helpers, like at every agency I've been at every juncture of some sort of career move or, even artistic goal, I found somebody who is willing to support me, to help me, to tell me what I should be doing so I can be successful, to tell me how much I should be asking for what services I'm offering, to tell me that I don't have to listen to the other mean girls who are telling me that I shouldn't, and I think that, I would say for anyone out there who's younger, who wants to do these things, you now have 6 people on this panel who, are in the arts, who are eager to, talk and tell you what we know. So consider us your contacts, reach out to people, ask questions, just find somebody who is on your wavelength and let your freak flag fly for them. And, you'll get results.
Yes, agreed. You guys are definitely a great team of people to go to. Absolutely amazing. Does anyone have any last thing that they would like to add about being a woman in the arts? Any final thing that they'd like to say before we conclude?
It's a lot of fun.
It is a lot of fun, though. I mean, I enjoy doing it. I mean, it's not always easy, but it's when you finally see your products come to life, when you see that billboard installed, or when you see that print ad go out, or you see that social media post get published. I mean, it was all worth it at the end. So I absolutely love it.
Great. I totally agree. Seeing that product, whatever it is that you've made, seeing people's reactions to it, there's no better thing. So I would like to thank all of you for joining me tonight for Third Thursday Live Art Club. You all are fantastic. I enjoyed talking to every single one of you. And I want to thank everybody who joined us in watching the show tonight. And I hope you got motivation from all of these amazing artists, and you do know where to reach them as well. And I'd like to thank Don Swinton for giving me the opportunity to host tonight. I really enjoyed it. Another opportunity for me to grow as a person, trying something new. So thank you very much for that. And thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoy the rest of your night and you enjoyed this broadcast.